The United States government was minutes away from grinding to a halt. Essential services teetered on the precipice of suspension. The specter of missed paychecks loomed over federal employees, but just as the clock struck midnight, the Senate pulled off a dramatic down-to-the-wire maneuver. They approved a stopgap funding bill, throwing a financial lifeline to a government on the verge of crisis. This wasn't a long-term solution, not by a long shot. It was a temporary patch, a band-aid on a system riddled with political fissures. But for now, it provided breathing room, extending government funding until March 14, 2025. The bill, a product of intense negotiation and frantic compromise, staved off the immediate threat of a shutdown, but it did little to address the deeper issues plaguing American politics. The relief, palpable in the Senate chamber, was tempered by the understanding that this was merely a postponement of a much larger battle. The bill bought time, but it didn't solve the underlying problems. The can had been kicked down the road and everyone knew it. The near shutdown exposed the fragility of American democracy, its vulnerability to partisan gridlock and the outsized influence of powerful individuals. It was a stark reminder that even in the world's oldest democracy, the machinery of government can be brought to its knees by political maneuvering and brinkmanship. The week leading up to the vote had been a whirlwind of political drama. What started as a seemingly routine budgetary process devolved into a chaotic scramble, a high-stakes game of chicken played out on the national stage. A bipartisan spending deal, carefully crafted and broadly supported, seemed poised for smooth passage. But then came President-elect Trump, throwing a wrench into the works with pronouncements that sent shockwaves through Washington. Trump, never one to shy away from conflict, denounced the deal. He claimed it was bad for America, bad for his incoming administration, and bad for anyone who dared to support it. His opposition, unexpected and vehement, torpedoed the fragile consensus that had been built. The House, suddenly thrust into disarray, scrambled to salvage the situation. Speaker Mike Johnson, caught in the crosshairs of a political firestorm, faced an unenviable task. He had to placate President-elect Trump, appease the more radical factions within his own party, and somehow cobble together enough votes to pass a bill. Adding to the pressure, Elon Musk, now a force to be reckoned with in American politics, waded into the fray, using his considerable platform to criticize the spending deal. The House, after days of frantic negotiation and backroom deals, managed to pass a revised bill. It was a stripped-down version, devoid of the debt limit suspension that Trump had demanded. The Senate, now the last line of defense against a government shutdown, faced a stark choice: pass the bill, flawed as it was, or risk plunging the country into chaos. The Stopgap bill, a patchwork of compromises and concessions, was far from perfect. It didn't address the long-term budgetary challenges facing the country, nor did it resolve the partisan differences that had brought the government to the brink of shutdown. But it did provide some much-needed relief, offering a temporary reprieve from the threat of immediate crisis. One of the bill's key provisions was a massive injection of funds for disaster relief. Over $100 billion was allocated to help communities recover from the devastating hurricanes that had ravaged the Southeast. The money, desperately needed and long overdue, would go towards rebuilding infrastructure, providing housing assistance, and supporting the long and arduous process of recovery. Farmers, hit hard by a combination of natural disasters and unfavorable trade policies, also received a much-needed boost. The bill included $10 billion in economic assistance for farmers, providing a lifeline to an industry struggling to stay afloat. The aid package, while welcomed by farmers, did little to address the systemic issues facing American agriculture. Perhaps the most significant aspect of the bill was its extension of government funding. By pushing the deadline to mid-March 2025, the bill ensured that essential government services would continue uninterrupted. Federal employees, many of whom had been bracing for furloughs and lost paychecks, breathed a collective sigh of relief. The near shutdown highlighted the increasingly influential role that individuals like Donald Trump and Elon Musk play in American politics. Trump, despite his electoral defeat, retained a vice-like grip on the Republican Party, his pronouncements carrying the weight of edicts. Musk, having transformed himself from tech mogul to political power player, used his vast platform to shape public opinion and pressure lawmakers. Trump's opposition to the initial spending deal stemmed from his belief that it did not adequately address the national debt. He viewed the debt ceiling, the legal limit on how much money the government can borrow as leverage in his quest to extract concessions from Democrats. His hardline stance, while popular with his base, threatened to plunge the country into economic chaos. Musk, for his part, echoed Trump's concerns about government spending. He used X, the social media platform formerly known as Twitter, to blast the spending deal, calling it fiscally irresponsible and urging his followers to contact their representatives. His intervention, while not as decisive as Trump's, added to the pressure on lawmakers already struggling to find a solution. The combined influence of Trump and Musk, two men who had never held elected office, underscored the shifting balance of power in American politics. Traditional political institutions, once the gatekeepers of power, now found themselves contending with the outsized influence of individuals who had amassed vast fortunes and even larger platforms.